Hello everybody and welcome back to Lost Planeswalker. You're here with me, Jesse, the Lost Planeswalker, and today we're looking at the Eternal Might Precon Upgrade Guide. This is a very cool deck, zombie focused. We're going to be looking at the commanders, new cards, cards I think you should cut, other cards I think you should add, and then a general just deck overview of what I think real quick at the end. But let's start out by looking at the two commanders here. We have Temet, Noctimoon's Will, and Hashton, Scab's First. Temet, Noctimoon's Will is 2 white, blue, black legendary creature zombie wizard with vigilance and menace, and whenever you attack, draw a card, and then discard a card. Whenever you draw a card, zombies you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. This is an insane zombie commander. I think that this deck is going to be the more popular one. It is very, very cool and just has so many of our favorite staple zombie cards already included in this deck that it's going to be incredibly fun out of the box. Putting a growth effect on a commander that hits all of our zombies whenever we draw is insane in blue because there's just so many ways to draw cards incidentally or with giant spells. So this is insane. And honestly, there's actually some really great black spells we're going to be talking about that can just draw you a ton of cards and have you win the game that easily. The other co-commander is Hashton, Scab's Fist, which is an Orzhov to cast, which I think is very, very great. Legendary creature zombie wizard. So whenever you discard a creature card, you may pay 2 in a blue. If you do, create a tapped token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. This is a really insane ability, discarding giant creatures and then being able to just cast them for 3 mana, or using one of my favorite cards, Training Grounds, being able to reduce that to just a single blue mana will let you do an insane number of things per turn. I think Hashton here is a stronger commander, but not really built around the deck that we have presented. In that case, Temet is the better commander, so we're going to stick with him when we're thinking about this deck. But one of my friends just built a Hashton deck, and it is a very, very cool deck, and I can't wait to show you later on. But let's start out by looking at those other new cards. We have Accused Dunyard, Lost Monarch of Ifnir, and On Wings of Gold. So Accused Dunyard is a land that taps very colorless, or 2 and tap, regenerate target shade, skeleton, specter, spirit, vampire, wraith, or zombie. That is a very, very cool card. We have a similar one of these for like bugs, insects, squirrels, and whatever, and it's honestly very good in the decks that can play it. And this is a very, very powerful card because honestly, you're going to have a card like Temet or another powerful zombie that somebody's going to try and remove, and guess what? You can just regenerate it if ever it would be destroyed. So that is awesome. Lost Monarch of Ifnir, 3 and a black creature zombie noble with afflict 3, and other zombies you control have afflict 3, meaning if this creature becomes blocked, the defending player loses 3 life, which is just an insane thing to even think. But at the beginning of your second main phase, if a player was dealt combat damage by a zombie this turn, mill 3 cards, then you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. This is crazy. I mean, I wish this was a legendary creature because people would build zombie decks just based around this card alone. But being able to add this in is very cool. And On Wings of Gold, 3 and a white enchantment. Creatures you control that are zombies and or tokens get +1/+1 and have flying. And then whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 1/1 white zombie creature token. Just another lord type effect that is super powerful. Giving our zombies flying is great. And then being able to create them whenever creatures leave our graveyard is everything you want to do in a zombie deck. So Priest of the Crossing, Prophet of the Scab, and Renewed Solidarity are next. Priest of the Crossing, 3 and a white, creature zombie bird cleric with flying. At the beginning of each end step, put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, where X is the number of creatures that died under your control this turn. There are so many decks that would love to play Priest of the Crossing. Right now, I only see it as $2, but I think this card is going to blow up when you start creating, a bunch of little creatures you're either sacking in an aristocrat style deck or a zombie deck or whatever. This is going to be a pretty awesome card. Prophet of the Scab, 4 and a blue creature zombie wizard with vigilance. When this creature enters, draw cards equal to the number of zombies you control or the number of zombie cards in your graveyard, whichever is greater. I personally know that when I'm playing a zombie deck, I either have a ton on the board or a ton on the bin, so being able to do that is insanely powerful. Renewed Solidarity, 2 and a white enchantment. As this enchantment enters, choose a creature type. Creature of the chosen type get +1/+0. And at the beginning of your end step, for each token you control of the chosen type that entered this turn, create a token that's a copy of it. What are we even talking about here? Like, this is insane. I can see this card going for anywhere from $13 to $40, which makes a lot of sense for me. But boy, That is just stupid how good that is. It's mono white as well, meaning it can go in any number of decks. Doubling up all the tokens you've created is a very, very powerful effect. So I'll be looking forward to see where this card is going and where that $40 price tag is coming from. But the last two cards to talk about are Reet to Mystic and Wizened Mentor. So Reet to Mystic, 1 in a blue, creature, zombie, bird, wizard with flying. Each creature card in your hand has cycling for 1 in a blue. I actually was just looking at building a cycling deck, and I think that this would be the perfect add for it. Obviously, giving all of our creature cycling is a very cool ability. Letting you dump cards into your bin if that's what you're looking for with Hashton here, while also getting to draw a card. So we actually pretty much, other than playing a blue or 2 in a blue, there's no real bad downside in this deck. And then Wizened Mentor, 1 in a white, creature, zombie, cleric. When an opponent activates an ability of a permanent that isn't a mana ability, you create a 1/1 white zombie creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. With so many cards now having activated abilities, whether it's a land, enchantment, artifact, or creature, this is going to be a very, very good card. And if you're just wanting to create more tokens, that's great. If you want to create zombies, that's great. It's just good all around. So I did find a number of cards as we move into cards you should cut that kind of didn't make much sense to me or could have been better. So let's start out by looking at Commerce the Endgame, Crowded Crypt, and Gate to the Afterlife. So, Commence the Endgame, 4 blue instant. This spell can't be countered. Draw 2 cards, then amass zombies X, where X is the number of cards in your hand. And I noticed that there was a number of amass cards in this deck. Some of them good, some of them I just don't care for. This is one of them I don't care for. Yes, you can draw 2 cards, which will activate Temet, and you can make a big zombie. I just don't think that this is good enough. We don't really care about having 1 big zombie because we care more about drawing more cards. And for 6 mana, I just don't feel like the value is there. Crowded Crypt is 2 in a black artifact. Tap it to add a black. Whenever a creature controlled dies, put a corpse counter on this, and then sack it for 4 black. Create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with decay for each corpse counter on this artifact. Yes, I think this is pretty nice, especially if you're using it as a win con and then drawing a bunch of cards, but decayed creatures can't block, so that's not very powerful. And if they attack, you have to sacrifice them, so they're kind of a one-for-all effect, and if somebody can stop them, then, you know, I think that all of the energy and mana you put into this is wasted. And then Gate to the Afterlife, 3 mana artifact. When a non-token creature you control dies, you gain 1 life. Then you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. It's okay. I think that this is not too bad, but what it wants you to do is pay 2, tap, sack this, search your graveyard and hand, or library for a card named God Pharaoh's Gift and put it on the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle. Activate only if there are 6 or more creature cards in your graveyard. Looking at the next 3 cards, including the God Pharaoh's Gift, we have Lazotep Chancellor and Maskwood Nexus. So this is a 7 generic artifact. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 black zombie and it gains haste until end of turn. I don't think that this is a terrible combo. You're going to get some benefit. My issue is if you don't get Gate to the Afterlife, you're going to have to pay 7 mana for this effect. That's okay to begin with, and honestly, a lot of our zombies want to be pulled back out of the graveyard, and there's a lot of cards that let us do that don't also exile them, so we can't get them back an additional time. That's kind of the point of zombies, is they keep going to the graveyard and we keep pulling them out. So I don't really like this pair of cards, so I cut them. Lazotep Chancellor, blue and a black creature, zombie, wizard. Whenever you discard a card, you may pay a single mana. If you do, amass zombies too. Again, Hashton here, a better card for this deck, and since we're not focusing around him, we're cutting it. And then Maskwood Nexus, 4 generic artifact. Creatures control are every creature type, and the same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. 3 and tap, create a 2/2 blue shapeshifter creature token with Changeling. So other than paying 3 mana a turn to cast a bad zombie, every other card in this deck should be a zombie, or almost all of them should be zombies. So I really don't see any benefit in having Maskwood Nexus in here, other than it's a nice reprint. And the other 3 cards I think you should print are Never Return, Timeless Dragon, and Twisted Abomination. Never Return, I think, is just a lot of mana for a kill spell and something that exiles a card from a graveyard. I just don't think that it's worth playing. Timeless Dragon, yes, it has plain cycling, so you can put in your bin or discard it. Again, we're not really caring about that as much with Temet. Eternalizing it, I'm not really super psyched for that, so we just cut this. And then Twisted Abomination. I think it's too much mana for a card that can regenerate, which is great. We can swamp cycle it, again, which is better for Hashton, because we can just discard it and then, you know, use his ability to get this thing back. I just don't think it's that great. A 6 mana zombie, there's a lot of other zombies we could cast 2 of for 6 mana, and their effect is going to be way more powerful for our entire board. So I found a ton of zombie cards I think you should put in this deck because there's a ton of amazing zombie cards. So I'm going to really quickly just run through the names and pictures of lords and staple zombie cards that you could throw in this deck, and then I'm going to go into some more cards that I think would be really fun to play that are going to work with our deck's effects in other more powerful ways. So we have Blade Stitcher Scab, Champion of the Parish, Death Baron, Diagraph Colossus, Headless Rider, Lord of the Undead, Tomb Tyrant, and Unstoppable Slasher. Now moving into the powerful legends I think would be very good in this deck. We have Jason Bright, Glowing Prophet, Machias the Unhollow, and Zulashur, Lord Lich. So Jason Bright, Glowing Prophet is from the Fallout decks, and for 2 and a blue, we get a legendary creature zombie mutant advisor. Whenever a zombie or mutant you control dies, if its power was different from its base power, draw a card. Obviously, Hashton here is going to let us change that to begin with. And then come fly with me to sack a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, it gains flying until end of turn. A great way to give some of our zombies evasion, and another way to sack zombies to draw cards. Machias the Unhollow, 3 black. Legendary creature zombie cleric with Intimidate. Whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it, and all non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying, letting us kill our zombies, bring them back before they finally go to the bin. And then Zul Ashur, Lich Lord, 1 in a black legendary creature zombie warlock with ward, pay 2 life, and then tap it. You may cast a target zombie card from your graveyard this turn. What a great way to just get something back. Obviously, I think that any zombie deck is going to want to have a nice recursion piece like that, so it's a no-brainer. Look at some large spells, though. You know, I did end up cutting some large spells or things that I just thought you were wasting your mana on, but here are some spells I don't think you'd be wasting your mana on. We have Necromancer's Covenant, Peer into the Abyss, and Zombie Apocalypse. So Necromancer's Covenant is 3 white black enchantment. When this comes into play, remove all creature cards in target player's graveyard from the game. Then put a 2/2 black zombie creature token into play for each card removed this way. Zombies you control have lifelink. I would pay a good amount of mana just to give our creatures lifelink. But the fact that if you're playing in a pod, there's probably somebody else who's playing a graveyard deck because that's very popular. Getting to exile their entire bin and then creating a 2/2 black zombie for each creature, that's what I like to see. That I think this is going to give you big payoffs. You can play it, the turn it comes down, you create a ton of zombies, they gain lifelink, and all the zombies you already have lifelink, so I think it's going to be well worth it. Peer into the Abyss is 4 black, sorcery. Target player draws cards equal to half the number of cards in their library, then loses half their life. Round up each time. Well, you know who's not going to care if you draw, let's say 30 cards. Let's say you have 60 cards left in your deck, you draw 30 cards. The number of zombies that are getting +30 from Temet. This is better than pretty much any blue spell you can play for the same amount of mana. It's so good. And yeah, I think that Peer into the Abyss is one of the cards that you definitely want to pay in this deck. And then Zombie Apocalypse, 3 black, sorcery. Return all zombie creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, tapped, then destroy all humans. Like I said earlier, we want to recur our zombies over and over. We do not want to exile them because we want to play a 6 mana card that'll get us, you know, who knows, 20, 30 mana worth of zombies out of our graveyard if we're lucky. But in the event that we can't do that and we're just trying to look at ways we can draw a ton of cards very cheaply, let's start out by looking at Brainstorm, Frantic Search, and Keep Watch. Brainstorm, no-brainer. Draw 3, put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order, but you're drawing those 3 cards, which is going to activate Temet's ability. Similarly, Frantic Search has us draw 2 cards. We have to discard 2 cards, but then we can untap 3 lands. And then Keep Watch is a great card when we're going to swing all out, and our opponents don't realize it because we can pay 3 to draw a card for each attacking creature, and then Temet's ability will activate, and we'll get to buff up all of our creatures in a pretty sneaky combat trick. Looking at some other things, we have Pull from Tomorrow, Tolarian Winds, and Whispering Madness. Pull from Tomorrow, draw X cards, and then discard a card, but we have to pay X into it. Pretty decent blue draw spell, but it's going to be able to also be activated as a combat trick, which I think is great. Tolarian Winds is another one that for 1 in a blue, we discard our hand and then draw that many cards. If we're able to stack these effects on top of each other, we can draw a ton, then discard all of our cards, draw a bunch, and, you know, it'll just get a ton of triggers and you're just going to win. And then Whispering Madness, one of my favorite cards. It has Cypher for 2 blue, black sorcery. Each player discards his or her hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. And Cypher means that as we cast the spell, we may exile it and encode it on a creature, and whenever that creature deals combat damage, we can then cast it for free. So the first time around, you're probably going to get this before combat. A great way to put a ton of zombies into our bin and draw into a bunch of new cards. And lastly, a very similar effect, we have Windfall. That'll allow us to discard our hand, then draw cards equal to the greatest number a player discarded this way. The remaining cool cards I think you should add to this deck are Dread Summons, Empty the Laboratory, and Necro Duality. Dread Summons is X black sorcery. Each player mills X cards. Then for each creature card that was put into the graveyard this way, you create a 2/2 tapped zombie creature token. Yeah, I wouldn't mind dumping a ton of mana into this. Let's say we pay 5, it's a 7 mana spell altogether, and half the cards are creatures. That's going to be 10 zombies for 7 mana and or 20 power. So yeah, I think that's worth it. Empty the Laboratory, X blue sorcery, sack X zombies, then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a zombie creature card equal to the number of zombies sacked this way. Put those cards on the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Obviously, you sacrifice a ton of tokens and then get a ton of non-tokens out of your deck right onto the battlefield. And then Necro Duality, 3 and a blue enchantment. Whenever a non-token zombie you control enters, create a token that's a copy of it. You are doing exactly as this card says, doubling up your zombies as they enter. So whether you're doing that, then casting Empty the Laboratory and just getting a ton of zombies, you know, it's gonna go crazy. But the last 3 cards here, we have Rise of the Dreadmarn, Rooftop Storm, and Wand of Orcus. Rise of the Dreadmarn, 2 and a black instant, create an X 2/2 black zombie berserker creature tokens, where X is the number of non-token creatures that died this turn. We could foretell it for a single black. This is a great card. If somebody plays a board wipe, we can instantly cast this and get a bunch of zombies to refill our board with. Or if we end up sacrificing or doing something crazy, we can end up getting a board so that we don't lose the game. Rooftop Storm is an expensive enchantment at 6 mana, but it lets us pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for zombies we cast. So yeah, I think that this is definitely worth it, especially in a deck that's going to have you draw a ton of cards, letting you play your zombies for free. And then last but not least, we have Wand of Orcus, 2 and a black. Legendary artifact equipment. Whenever a equipped creature attacks or blocks, it and zombies you control gain death touch until end of turn. And then whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create that many 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. Let's say we put this on a creature, we buff it up with Temet, we're going to be creating a ton of zombies and have an even bigger board to swing in next turn. So what do I think about this deck? It is really fun. I think that there's a lot of great zombies already in this deck. I think the support cards in this deck are pretty good. I think that, you know, you could go through and really buff this up by, you know, cutting and adding some different cards. But we got some great adds like the Scarab God. Obviously, Gravecrawler is a no-brainer that they added in here. There's some really powerful new zombie cards that I think you're going to want to just buy this deck to take apart if you're looking for those cards, because I think some of them are going to be real expensive. So this is a amazing deck. I'm definitely picking this up because it looks so much fun. And with that, I would just like to say thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this deck. Do you think it's as powerful as I do? What do you think the cards I added or cut? Was there something else you would do? You know, let me know in the comments down below. It would really help me out. In addition, if you want to help me out another way, please leave a like, share this video with a friend, and subscribe. And if you enjoy the videos I do, check out my Patreon. It would mean the world to me. Now, today's Scryfall card of the day is Phyrexian Plague Lord, the final stage of the illness, delirium, convulsion, and death. Phyrexian Progress Note. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.